Guys, speaking of that, this is a great transition into How to Train Your DEI, aka How to Train Your Dragon, which released its first teaser. But the
Can
thing
I
that
just say
everyone's
on the
been
whole
talking
thing
about.
with her real quick
Well,
before
well,
we move
well,
on from her?
well, I'll let you say your piece in a second here, Tom. So basically, the thing isn't about the live action trailer. It's about the fact that this Astrid character has been replaced by a young woman of color, and everyone's losing their minds about it. And the director came out and basically said, hey, we're doing a fantasy here. So it doesn't matter if it's not historically accurate. But the thing that Hollywood doesn't seem to understand is that people want to see faithful representations of stuff that they love, right? So like, like all this stuff, it's basically, diversity and equity and inclusion based. But fans don't want to see that. They want to see faithful representations. So, Tom, go ahead and make your point, but also chime in on this. Why do you think Hollywood just continues to double down on this whole race swapping thing?
Well, my point had less to do with the race swapping. It had more to do with herself, her point of, the women's rights thing. It's funny that I just find it hilarious that that's the breaking line for some people and not killing babies. But otherwise, on that note, like this whole thing with her, with the changing of the character in How to Train Your Dragon, we knew about this when the movie first started filming, and people blew up then about it. And to me, it's like I'm of two minds of it. It's like part of me doesn't give a shit because, as you're right, it is, the director is right. It's fantasy. It doesn't really matter. It's not like it's the Leif Erikson story or some shit like that, right? It's about dragons and shit. But then again, you're trying to do a quote unquote live action version of your pre-existing animated movie, and this is a problem that Disney just can't seem to get around. Is it's really easy just to find somebody who looks like the original character that you already designed. Why aren't you doing that? When 90% of this trailer that we've seen so far looks exactly like the original cartoon, she sticks out like a sore thumb. Mm-hmm. So if anything, you're kind of calling more attention to it. And this is kind of the thing that reminded me of during the Batman. Because I'm sitting there watching the Batman, and I had no problem with Jeffrey, what's his name, playing...
Jeffrey Wright.
Jeffrey Wright playing Gordon and stuff like that, until you started getting all the BLM crap out of Catwoman.
Out of Catwoman,
yeah, and that one chick telling Bruce he has to do better. And then you sit back and you realize, wait a minute, every white person in this movie is a piece of shit. Is that the only reason that Gordon is black? So they could have him be good because they couldn't stand have him be a white good guy? Because they even make Bruce Wayne vicariously a piece of shit in a lot of ways. And Alfred definitely for keeping all that stuff from him and about his family's past. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. But I can see where people are upset about this because you have a character in mind. And then when you go to see something like this, you want to see an exact, like an update, a quote unquote live action version of your favorite animated film. And you get this crap, right? And this is where I can see most people were feeling the same way with Little Mermaid, right? We even seen the videos of the little black girls going, that don't look like Ariel. And then their mom's like, but she's black. And the girl's like, so?
Well, I think the problem is, she's quarter black. We talked about this last night.
So she's related to Garrett?
She is related to Garrett. And it's too bad he wasn't on the show because he was editing my video. But with this one, I don't think it's that big of a deal. I think if it works in the story, that's fine. But ultimately, it's Vikings. So you want to go, oh, this is a fantasy story. Well, you're using Vikings. Just use a different, don't use Vikings. Because we know if you did this with something else, if you did this with a Zulu nation or something, or some African-based fantasy, right, and you threw in a white dude, there'd be a bunch of problems. So, don't tell me this bullshit that it doesn't matter, because Hollywood made it matter. If it doesn't matter, then why turn the doctor into a woman? If it doesn't matter, because it does matter to them. They're the ones who made it matter.
And Gary, I'd say if it doesn't matter, why is there such an outcry about quote unquote whitewashing, where you cast a white person in a traditionally ethnic role? Yeah. But I mean, there is outcry about that cultural appropriation, like all this other BS stuff. So it's like, hey, if it works, if it doesn't matter in one direction, why doesn't it matter in the other direction, right? But Odin, I don't know if you know this or not, but I did used to work in Hollywood.
Oh, really?
And I was a filmmaker when I was there. And there was this old saying that like 90% of directing is casting, right? So it's like you cast the correct person, your job as a director is very, very easy. And this director, when he was asked about, the race swapping thing, where he was like, we auditioned many actors for the roles, including actors who looked like their animated counterparts, but we chose the actors who best embodied the spirit and personality of the characters. And he basically justified his casting of this young lady as like she was the best actress for the role.
Those are just code words that they use, though.
Yes, indeed. And like in my estimation, like as a director, if you're thinking about the audience and how the audience is going to respond to your stuff, like this director, basically, he had to justify his thing by saying that, in our movie, the Viking tribes are from the dragon fighters from yonder years and stuff like that. But what we saw with like Fan Four Stick, right, where they cast Michael B. Jordan as Johnny Storm, it's like if you have to like do your homework before you go see a movie to understand why people are the way that they are, then you're failing as a storyteller, right? So I wanted to get your take on this. Why do you think directors are, going along with this stuff when it directly affects the success of their movies?
Yeah, it's a hard thing to really pinpoint because there are some arguments that can be made. Like, I do enjoy when people are more focused about someone actually being able to act the part versus looking like the part, because just because someone looks right does not necessarily mean that they're going to be the best actor for that role. But I do call BS whenever these directors and producers try to say, oh, well, we found the best person for this specific role, because you can find this out if you ever spend any time in New York. And when you find in New York, especially with Broadway, is that there are countless numbers of actors who are all equally talented, who could all do a lot of the same roles that bigger names, bigger stars have. And yet, because there's so many of them, a lot of them just do not get any work. If you go to see a show and the understudy comes in, sometimes people are very disappointed because they're like, oh, I went to come see this big name, but the understudy sometimes does as well, if not even a better job in the actual performance. So in the case of movies, when they say, oh, this was the best person for the role, I'm like, I call BS, because I guarantee you, if you have a huge casting call and you've got countless hundreds, thousands of people coming out for this role, there's going to be at least a handful of people that are all right about at the same level, which makes you ask the question, what about this specific person gave them the edge? And the question has to be asked, was it their race, or was it because of some other X factor that they are just not going to talk about, right? Again, these are things, networking, maybe they knew the person, because I think that actress has been in other things. She seems somewhat familiar to me. I don't know if she's been in another show or not. So like,
yeah, she was in what was it, that HBO show?
Was she in the Last of Us?
The Last of Us, yes.
Okay,
yes,
that's what I thought. I was like she kind of looked like the actress from The Last of Us. So it could also be that, right? Saying, oh, well, we've worked with her before, and so. But if they aren't even willing to say that, of, oh, well, we really liked her because she worked with us before and we thought that she did a great job, then it makes you think, okay, maybe there's another reason as to why that is the case. But yeah, I think that it honestly, will it affect the overall numbers for the movie? I don't think so, because if she is at least able to fit that role, most people won't really care as much, like especially the normie audience or the people that just don't follow this stuff. I know Ryan was talking about this a lot last night about how people not in our space really either don't know or don't care about this kind of stuff, or at least aren't as aware of it as we are. And so I think that it's not going to really, affect the bottom line of the movie. I think the bigger problem for the movie is that I don't think there are a lot of people, or as many people, who are actually wanting to see a live action version of that story, because especially how little time has passed between the story, like the original animated film, and now this live action remake. It seems a very short time compared to some of the other ones that have come out from the likes of Disney and other companies. So I think that would hurt it more so than any of the casting.
I want to know, and kind of on the same vein, it's not How I Met Your Dragon, has the casting of the lady who plays the Wicked Witch of the West in Wicked, has that race swap affected the numbers for that movie at all? Do people care? Or is it because she has green skin, it doesn't matter who plays her?
I think when they had it on Broadway, they had a few times where it was played by a black actress, so it was already
being white is not really specific to like How to Train Your Dragon. You have history that you can go to and say, okay, those people. But for Wicked, for Elphaba, literally every race, because this play is in every country.
Because to me, I've never seen Wicked. My Wicked Witch is the old white lady from the old movie.
Honestly, Butters, that's like the least of this movie's problems.
Right. And I'm just asking because to me, I see a race swap. But
Right,
I
well,
don't.
in this case-
But overall, it seems like people are very positive about this movie. So I was just
Oh,
curious.
it's gonna make lots of money.
Yeah.
No, the reason I
It's
mean,
not made for
Odin's
us, though.
right about actors, right?
Mhm.
There's so many of them. You throw a rock in the air. So many talented ones that get looked over because they don't have the right politics. You know, that's Clifton Duncan is a great example. Great stage actor, dude, mega talented, and you know, right now he's just a star on Twitter, which is great. I think that's his calling. But dude, you can't tell me that she was the best person for the role when you have DEI rules that are written into your Oscar rules, what are written into each company. And these are rules. These are hard set rules. You literally have check boxes. So you can't tell me I don't believe you. And you know what? Ultimately, the actress hired or the actor hired or the director cast doesn't believe you either. You know, it's not fair to them either. Of course, they're going to take the job. Who's not going to take the job? But I've had people reach out to me, and you know, when I use the term, they cast producers, they cast directors. That, you know, it's true. It's true, and they get there and they're not listened to. So it doesn't really do anybody any favors if you're up jump because of your skin color. You know,
Right.
everything should be merit based. They need to go back to that, and that's why everything is kind of slop right now. And it's not fair to anybody, including the people that, you know, like, I have nothing against this actress. She hasn't gone out there and pissed on the fans or anything. So, like, you know, if she does great, that's fine. She's not Rachel Zegler, who's out there gaslighting everybody and being an idiot.
Oh man.
And now has become the poster child of what's left of woke Hollywood. And she deserves it. She absolutely earned it. But I'd like to get into a place where, you know, Hollywood they're the ones who created this mess, and they want to blame the fans, and they want to blame people who, like, you know, Captain America is Steve Rogers. That's not a controversial statement. It's not. But if I go out even on Twitter today, it'll hit Reddit 48 hours later, and my mentions will be filled bunch of whatevers going after me because I said Steve Rogers is Captain America, which is, you know, like the Miles Morales is Miles Morales. You know, it's a factual statement, but it triggers so many people, and it's the corporations in Hollywood who created this environment and effed up fandom. We didn't F up fandom. We don't have that power. I don't have that power. Odin doesn't have the power. Salty Nerd Podcast doesn't have that power, but Disney does. Amazon does. These companies do. They're the ones who effed up fandom. And that's why we're having these conversations. I think How to Train Your Dragon, I think it'll do well. I think the bigger takeaway, guys, is when, like, we're remaking animated shows that are live action, that are just animated shows with people walking around with a bunch of CG.
Well, and in the case like Lion King, it's just basically an animated movie all over again, but people have to call it live action. It's not like John Favreau was sitting there with a steak in front of a lion going, act for me. Come on. Show me some emotion. You know, it was just literally just animation at the end of the day. And I just want to say something quick about casting calls. They're bullshit. Whenever they say they're doing a casting call, they already know exactly who they got in mind or what they got in mind, because the most recent one I remember was The Karate Kid. They said, oh, we're doing an open casting call, blah, blah, blah. No, they were looking for an Asian kid, and that's it. They knew exactly what they wanted, and that was it. So, like,
are you saying, Tom, are you saying it's like the NFL head coach hiring process where they're required to interview 2 black guys, an Asian dude, and somebody from Taiwan before they can hire the guy that they really want?
Sort of, kind of, but in this case, it's just more like Fugazi. It's just they're putting up a sign saying this is what we're doing when they're not. It's all.
Yeah.